Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at this essay
Okay.
called ¿Están los universitarios listos para ser independientes?
Wow.
Which,
That's a mouthful.
yeah, this mouthful.
Yeah.
It means, are university students ready for independence?
Okay.
And, on the surface, you might think like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They're going up to college,
They're adults now.
living on their own. They got to be ready for independence.
Yeah.
But this essay kind of digs a little deeper into like what independence actually means like in the context of like being a university student today.
Gotcha. So like not just, being able to do your own laundry and,
Exactly.
cook ramen and
Like
stuff.
just the surface level stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the deeper implications of like what it means to be independent and what are the challenges that students are facing like
Right.
these days that maybe weren't as prevalent in the
Yeah.
past.
Like maybe our generation didn't have to deal with or, people even before us.
Yeah. So the essay breaks it down into kind of three core areas of independence.
Okay.
Emotional independence, academic independence,
Okay.
and financial independence.
Makes sense.
So let's start with that first one.
Okay.
Emotional insurance. I remember when I first went to college, living with roommates was like a huge
Oh my gosh.
adjustment for me. It was like a crash course in like how to like
Yeah.
set boundaries and like
How to deal with people.
communicate effectively.
Yeah. Who you don't necessarily like all the time.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. So what does the essay say about like navigating those kinds of situations as a university student?
So it actually talks about stepping out of your comfort zone and like you were saying, being able to like handle your relationships with like a new level of maturity. So you're meeting all these new people, you're in this new environment, maybe you're away from like your family and your old friends for the first time, then you're kind of expected to like figure it all out.
Right. And like manage your emotions on top of everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like being thrown into the deep end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sink or swim.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got emotional. What about academic independence? I'm guessing it's a little more than just like showing up to class and doing the reading.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. But the essay talks about becoming like the CEO of your own education. So it's not just about passively absorbing information, but it's about taking initiative, like seeking out information,
Yeah.
questioning what you're learning, making those connections yourself.
So it's like learning how to learn,
Yeah.
which is
huge.
a lifelong skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's academic. And then there's financial advantage. Is this where the stereotype of the broke college student comes from?
Maybe. I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully there's more to it than just ramen noodle.
Hopefully.
Right. But yeah, this is where managing money comes into play. And for a lot of students, it's the first time they're having to like create a budget, pay bills, make responsible choices about spending.
Right. And no one's really taught them how to do that.
Exactly. And the essay argues that those skills are often missing. And like with the rising cost of everything these days, it's more important than ever.
Yeah. So all three of these are super interconnected.
Yeah.
Like you can't really have financial freedom if you're completely stressed out and like burning out academically.
Yeah, for sure. They all play off of each other.
Right. Of those three, which one do you think is the most challenging for students today?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think they're all so intertwined. But I guess what really stood out to me was how the essay connected these like individual struggles to these bigger challenges that students are facing today. Like we're talking academic and emotional overload, lack of financial literacy, technology addiction.
Oh, yeah, technology addiction.
Even things like practical life skills.
Wait, hold on. Poor practical life skills? Like what?
Yeah.
Like they don't know how to do laundry or cook?
I know, right? It sounds basic.
Huh.
But the essay actually cites studies where like a pretty big chunk of students say they struggle with things like cooking, laundry scheduling appointments, things that you would think would be like common knowledge. And it argues that like this lack of basic skills actually makes them feel less confident in other areas of life too.
Oh, so it's like a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay, so we've got these like four big challenges on top of the three areas of independence we already talked about.
Right.
Let's zoom in on that academic and emotional overload thing.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's a big one,
Huge.
especially these days.
Yeah,
Like there's so much talk about burnout,
totally.
even outside of just school.
Yeah.
What's the essay's take on that?
So it basically says that we're kind of throwing students into this pressure cooker without giving them the tools to handle it. Like, it's not just the academic demands. It's the pressure of social media, the
Yeah.
fear of missing out, all the anxieties of the world today. It's like it's all hitting them at
What?
once.
It's like they're expected to perform at this really high level,
Yeah.
but they don't have the skills to handle the pressure.
Yeah, and the essay suggests that this actually makes it harder to develop that emotional resilience, which we were talking about earlier.
Which is crucial for independence.
Exactly. So it's like they're kind of stuck in this cycle of stress and overwhelm that spills over into every part of their life. And it makes it even harder to build those healthy coping mechanisms.
Okay. That makes me think about the technology addiction piece,
Oh, yeah.
because I feel like everyone's glued to their phones these days.
Right.
Is it really like that big of a problem?
Well, the essay paints a pretty concerning picture. It points out how social media, streaming services, online games, all these things are constantly competing for students' attention. And it's often pulling them away from like real world responsibilities and relationships.
So it's like technology is a double-edged sword.
Totally.
It's like they need it for learning and connecting,
Right.
but it's also like super distracting.
And the essay argues that all this digital stimulation is actually making it harder for them to develop important skills like critical thinking, even basic communication.
Yeah, it's like their brains are being rewired for like entertainment instead of like
Yeah,
deep focus.
totally.
Okay, what about financial literacy? I feel like a lot of young people graduate without really understanding how to manage money.
It's true.
Is it really that bad?
The essay says it's more common than we might think. Like, a lot of students just aren't prepared to deal with things like student loans, unexpected expenses, even just basic budgeting.
Right.
And this can create a whole cycle of stress that impacts everything from their studies to their mental health.
It makes you wonder why these skills aren't taught earlier. Like even in high school.
Right.
Like why are we waiting until they're already in debt to teach them about like managing their money?
The essay actually touches on that. It argues that if we incorporate financial literacy, practical life skills, even things like emotional intelligence into earlier education, it could really make a difference.
Yeah, like give them a head start.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these 4 major challenges, all kind of interconnected and impacting students' ability to be independent.
Yeah.
But what like shapes their journey toward independence in the first place? The essay talks about like family, the education system, even just like prior life experiences.
Right.
Let's start with family.
Okay.
I mean, it seems kind of obvious that like supportive parents would encourage independence.
Yeah.
But is it really that straightforward?
It's actually a lot more nuanced. The essay points out that it's not just about if parents encourage autonomy, it's about how they do it.
Oh, interesting.
Like, are they fostering genuine responsibility and decision-making, or are they being more controlling and critical?
So like the classic helicopter parent could actually be doing more harm than good.
The essay argues that, yeah, it can actually stifle a student's ability to develop crucial skills like problem-solving and decision-making.
Right, because if you're always being told what to do,
Yeah,
you never learn to like trust your own judgment.
exactly, or bounce back from your mistakes.
Right.
So,
Okay, so what about the education system itself?
okay.
How much responsibility does it have in like preparing students for independence?
The essay argues that traditional education models, with their emphasis on like memorization and standardized tests, they often don't do a great job of equipping students with the skills they need to actually thrive in the real world.
Right. So it's not just about absorbing information.
Yeah.
It's about learning how to think critically and solve problems and like apply that knowledge.
Exactly. And the essay suggests that incorporating more hands-on learning group collaborations, real-world applications of knowledge, that could really help students develop those essential skills.
Yeah. Okay, so then there's prior experiences outside of school.
Right.
The essay mentioned things like work experience, extracurriculars,
Yeah.
even living away from home for a bit.
Yeah, all of that can play a role.
How do those things tie into independence?
Well, think about it. Even a part-time job can teach you so much about time management responsibility, communicating with different types of people. Someone who's involved in extracurricular activities might learn leadership skills, teamwork, how to take initiative. And living away from home, even for a short period, can really force you to figure things out on your own.
It's like a crash course
Yeah,
in independence.
totally.
Wow. Okay, so we have this complex interplay of family education system and just like random life experiences shaping a student's like readiness for independence.
Right.
It really shows how individual circumstances play a huge role.
For sure.
But is there anything that can be done to like help foster independence, even if a student's background hasn't like fully prepared them?
Yeah, the essay actually dives into that, and it offers some really interesting suggestions. One that stood out to me was this idea of Emotional education.
Emotional education.
Yeah.
So like teaching them not just what to think, but like how to think and feel.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's about equipping students with the tools to understand and manage their emotions. Things like self-awareness, stress management techniques, learning healthy ways to communicate and navigate difficult situations.
I feel like those are skills that like everyone could benefit from,
Totally.
not just college students.
Right. And the essay argues that by building emotional intelligence, students are better equipped to handle setbacks, make responsible choices, build healthy relationships, all key aspects of independence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The essay also mentions practical skills training.
Yeah.
Is that literally like teaching them how to do laundry and cook ramen?
Well, those are important, but it goes beyond that. The essay suggests things like workshops on budgeting, time management, even like basic home maintenance. Basically giving them the tools they need to manage everyday life.
And I feel like that stuff should be woven into the curriculum way earlier.
I agree. The essay makes a strong case for that.
Yeah.
It argues that it could really help students feel more confident and prepared.
Okay, now another strategy that the essay highlights is mentorship.
Okay.
How can mentors help in this whole journey toward independence?
Mentors can be so valuable. Having someone with more experience, whether it's an older student, a professor, a professional in their field to offer guidance and support, can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's like having a guide on this whole adulting journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and the last strategy the essay mentions is promoting academic autonomy.
Right.
What does that look like in practice?
It's about encouraging students to take ownership of their learning. Things like project-based learning, research opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that lets them apply their knowledge, explore their passions, develop that sense of self-direction.
So moving away from that passive learning model
Yes.
to a more like active, engaged approach.
Exactly.
Okay, and I can see how that would build confidence and like independent thinking.
Yeah, and the essay argues that by fostering academic autonomy, we're not only deepening their understanding of their field, but also equipping them with those critical thinking and problem-solving skills that they'll need for life in general.
Right. It's like those transferable skills.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered the challenges, the factors that influence independence, even some strategies for fostering it.
Right.
Now back to that central question.
Okay.
Are university students truly ready for independence?
Right.
Does the essay give a definitive answer?
It doesn't really offer a simple yes or no. Instead, it emphasizes that, like, readiness for independence is a spectrum.
Okay.
You know, individual circumstances, cultural background, access to support, all of these things play a role.
Okay.
It's not like a destination you reach. It's a journey that unfolds differently for everyone.
Okay, so some students might be more prepared than others,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Exactly.
Are there any like hopeful takeaways from the essay?
Oh, for sure. The essay highlights all these inspiring stories of students who, you know, despite coming from challenging backgrounds or facing obstacles,
Right.
they developed incredible resilience and achieved their goals.
So even when you don't feel ready,
Yeah.
you can still figure it out.
Exactly.
That's really encouraging.
Yeah.
Okay, now the essay doesn't just stop at identifying the problem.
Right.
It also offers some pretty bold recommendations for like systemic changes
Yeah.
to better prepare students for independence.
Big picture stuff.
Yeah. Let's dive into those after a quick break.
Yeah, it's really cool how the essay like doesn't just like point fingers, you
Yeah.
know. It actually offers some solutions.
Yeah.
And it goes pretty big picture too, like talking about changes not just in universities, but like in the whole education system and like even society as a whole.
Okay, so let's talk big picture for a second.
Huh?
One recommendation that really jumped out at me was like reforming education, like at the elementary and secondary level,
Okay.
to include things like emotional intelligence,
Right.
problem solving,
Yeah.
long-term planning.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I'd learned those skills earlier.
Me too.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, imagine if from a young age, students were like equipped with the tools to like understand and manage their emotions, think critically, plan for the future. It's like giving them this mental toolkit for navigating life's challenges, you know?
Yeah, instead of waiting until they're like already in college and like,
Right. By then, they're already playing catch up,
right.
feeling overwhelmed and unprepared.
Yeah.
And the essay argues that by incorporating these skills earlier, we can like build a much stronger foundation for independence and empower them to like take control of their own learning journey.
Another recommendation that caught my eye was this idea of implementing transition programs
Oh, yeah.
at the university level.
Okay.
What would those look like?
So the essay kind of envisions these introductory courses that are specifically designed to help students adjust to like the demands and responsibilities of university life. Think like workshops on study skills, time management, financial literacy, even like practical stuff like cooking and laundry.
It's like Adulting 101,
Exactly.
which I think a lot of incoming students could really benefit from.
Yeah, for sure. It's about giving them the tools and resources to succeed from the get-go, rather than just throwing them in the deep end and hoping they figure it out.
Right. Now, the essay also advocates for expanding access to mental health services
Yes.
on campus,
So important.
which feels incredibly important given like the rising rates of anxiety and depression
Right.
among students these days.
Absolutely. Providing like readily available counseling services,
Yeah.
support groups, mental health resources, it can make such a difference.
It's about creating a campus culture where like talking about mental health is normalized
Yes.
and students feel comfortable seeking help.
Yeah, I feel like for a long time, mental health was kind of brushed aside.
Totally.
But now we're starting to realize how crucial it is for
Right.
overall well-being and success.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a recommendation that kind of goes beyond the typical classroom setting,
Okay.
promoting international experiences or work placements.
Right.
How do those experiences tie into fostering independence?
Well, think about the challenges and growth opportunities that come with like navigating a new culture, adapting to unfamiliar surroundings, problem solving in unexpected situations, whether it's studying abroad, doing an internship in a different city, even volunteering overseas. Stepping outside of your comfort zone can be so transformative.
I remember when I studied abroad in college, it was definitely a trial by fire.
Right.
But looking back, it was one of the most valuable experiences I had.
Yeah, it pushes you to rely on yourself to be adaptable, to
Mhm.
communicate with people from different backgrounds. And the essay argues that those skills are essential for navigating an increasingly interconnected world.
Okay, so we have this like multifaceted approach
Yeah.
to strengthening independence,
Yeah.
addressing everything from early education to mental health resources to real-world experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty ambitious vision.
It is. But the essay emphasizes that even small changes can make a big difference. It's about starting somewhere
Yeah.
and building momentum.
It's about recognizing that fostering independence is a collective effort. It involves educators, parents, policymakers, even students themselves.
For sure, we all have a role to play.
So we've unpacked these recommendations for change.
Mm.
But I'm curious, are there any that like stood out to you personally? Maybe ones you find particularly promising or even a little controversial?
You know what really resonated with me was this emphasis on shifting from a purely academic focus to a more holistic approach to education. It's about recognizing that success isn't just about grades and test scores. It's about developing the whole person.
Yeah. So giving equal importance to those soft skills.
Exactly. Things like emotional intelligence, communication, critical
Yeah.
thinking, things that you can't really measure on a test.
Right.
And the essay argues that by cultivating these qualities, we're not just preparing students for university, but for life.
Yeah.
We're empowering them to become well-rounded individuals who can navigate the world, adapt to change, contribute meaningfully to society.
That's a powerful vision. And it brings us back to that central question.
Yeah.
Are university students truly ready for independence?
Right.
After diving into this essay, do you think we're setting them up for success?
It's not a simple answer. I mean, the essay acknowledges the challenges, the systemic issues, the gaps in preparedness, but it also highlights like the resilience of young people, their capacity for growth, the potential for positive change.
So maybe it's less about whether they're ready and more about whether we as a society are doing enough to support them on this journey.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a shared responsibility. And the essay's recommendations offer a roadmap for how we can start to bridge that gap and empower the next generation to thrive.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive.
It really has.
And before we wrap up, I have to ask. The essay focuses on university students.
Right.
But how relevant do you think these themes are to broader society?
Oh, that's a great question.
Like, are we adequately preparing young people in general for the complexities of adult life?
That's a question that deserves its own deep dive, I think, because when you really think about it, these challenges and potential solutions aren't limited to just the university setting. The need for emotional intelligence, financial literacy, practical life skills, those are universal needs.
So maybe this isn't just a conversation about university students,
Right.
but a reflection on how we prepare young people as a whole
Exactly.
for the realities of adulthood.
And maybe that's the most important takeaway from this whole conversation. It's a call to action for all of us to think about how we can better support and empower the next generation, both within and beyond the walls of academia.
I love that. And with that thought-provoking question hanging in the air,
Yeah.
we're going to wrap up this part of the deep dive. But stick with us. We'll be right back to explore some final takeaways from the essay and maybe even challenge some of our own assumptions along the way. All right, so we're back, and I'm still kind of like thinking about that question, are we as a society like doing enough to prepare young people for adulthood? It's a big one. But before we get too philosophical, let's circle back to those recommendations for change in the essay. We touched on a few, but I'm curious to hear more about what really stood out to you, what resonated.
You know what really struck me? It was this idea that fostering independence isn't just about teaching practical skills. It's about cultivating a certain mindset. The essay calls it a growth mindset, where challenges are seen as opportunities for learning. And setbacks aren't failures, they're like stepping stones.
I love that. It's like reframing the whole experience of becoming independent. Instead of being overwhelmed by everything you don't know, you're excited to learn and figure things out.
Yeah.
But how do we actually cultivate that kind of mindset, especially when there's so much pressure to succeed right away?
Well, the essay suggests that it starts with how we approach education. It argues that traditional methods with their emphasis on grades and standardized tests, that can actually undermine a growth mindset. Because think about it. If you're constantly being judged on your performance, it's natural to become risk averse, right? You focus on avoiding failure rather than embracing challenges.
So it's like we're unintentionally teaching them to be afraid of making mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
which is the opposite of what we want.
Exactly. And the essay suggests that by shifting our focus to learning and growth, rather than just achievement, we can create an environment where students feel safe to experiment, take risks, learn from their mistakes.
Yeah. It's about creating a culture of curiosity and resilience, where it's okay to not have all the answers right away.
Totally.
Now, the essay also talks about the importance of mentorship, not just from teachers, but from people with real-world experience.
Yeah.
How do you see that playing out in the context of fostering independence?
I think mentors can be such incredible guides on this journey. Imagine having someone who's been through it all, the ups and downs, the challenges, the successes, to offer advice, encouragement, and maybe even a reality check when you need it.
It's like having a personal board of advisors for your life.
Totally.
People you can turn to for different perspectives and support.
And the essay emphasizes the importance of having mentors from diverse backgrounds and industries so students can get a broader view of what's possible and see that there are many different paths to success.
Yeah. It's about expanding their horizons.
Yeah.
Showing them that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to independence.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about the challenges of technology addiction earlier,
Right.
but the essay also acknowledges the potential of technology to actually support independence. What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because the essay suggests that technology can be both a hindrance and a help.
Right.
On the one hand, it can be a major source of distraction. It can even make it harder to develop essential skills like focus and critical thinking.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can also provide access to information, connect people with resources, and even foster a sense of community and support.
It's like any tool.
Right.
It can be used for good or bad depending on how you wield it.
Exactly. And the essay emphasizes the importance of teaching students how to use technology responsibly and effectively so they can harness its power for their own growth and development.
So it's about digital literacy,
Yeah.
not just in terms of technical skills,
Right.
but in terms of critical thinking and responsible online behavior.
Oh.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's
Yeah.
the one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with today?
I hope they understand that independence is not a destination. It's an ongoing journey. It's about constantly learning, adapting, evolving. And it looks different for everyone. And even if you don't feel ready right now, that's okay. It's about taking small steps, embracing challenges, and building a support system that empowers you to grow.
I love that perspective. It brings us full circle to that question we posed earlier. Are we as a society doing enough to prepare young people for the complexities of adult life? It's a big question, and one that deserves a lot more discussion, I think.
Absolutely. But I think by acknowledging the challenges, exploring potential solutions, and having these open conversations, we're already taking steps in the right direction.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us and shedding your expertise.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope this conversation has sparked some new ideas and maybe even inspired you to think differently about independence. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking discussions. Until next time, this is the Deep Dive signing off.